No, can you hear me, Jay? And Karen, can you hear me? So we just can't hear Karen.
We're still not hearing you, if that's...
Okay, how about now? Oh, I've got an input level.
Yes, that worked great.
Okay.
I can hear you fine now, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Teamwork, everyone. And it was perfect that that happened. It seemed like a problem, but before we got started, it allowed Director Redfern to come in. So you didn't miss anything except for me trying to work this. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and get started. Director Redfern is here. We have done the pledge and the roll call, so let us go ahead. No public comment other than helping me, Jay? No? Okay. And I don't see anyone else in here right now. So we will go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. We have all received this last week and had an opportunity to go over it, but if you need a little more time to peruse, fellow directors, let me know if there is anything that you had questions about or any corrections that you would like to make. Yeah, I thought I had went over it pretty well, but I did miss the one check that you asked the question about, so doesn't hurt to look
How could you
again.
miss that?
I was blocking. It's something. It's some kind of psychological phenomenon. Okay, so we. Oh, there was one that you cleared up before the meeting. There was an insurance reimbursement. Yeah, so, or actually, Director Beard, he's our financial expert here.
I just looked at the explanation behind it.
Oh, come on now. It was very difficult. Took advanced experience and knowledge. Okay, well, if there aren't any questions or comments, I would call for a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the treasurer's dashboard report, the disbursements, and the profit and loss budget performance. Okay, we have a motion from Director Beard. Do we have a second? And Director Mueller seconds. So with that, then we will move on to the action items. Oh, we need to vote. Okay, Wendy, please.
Motion by Director Beard and second by Director Mueller to approve the consent agenda as presented. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redfern, Director Mueller.
Aye.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Dean.
Aye.
Now we will go on to the consented or the action agenda. And the first thing is 6A, Horizon Drive Mainline Project Update. And I will turn that over to our General Manager, Jose Acosta.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. We have from the General Manager for SYCSD. Tonight, I'll give you an update on the Horizon Drive project. There are 3 items on this update. One is the loan application process that we're at now, the easement, procurement, and monitoring wells that we'd like to discuss in the next action item. With that being said, with the loan application, staff has completed the initial application, which was the general information and the financial information portion of the application. We are waiting for the engineer to complete the technical portion of the application, and that should be sent over by tomorrow or Friday. We will review and get that uploaded to the system. We are working with Terra Verde, who is they are the environmental specialists that we have that we approved back in February, March, to approve, retain them to do the environmental portion of that. So they are scheduled to go out tomorrow and do their environmental assessment, do the easement, and do the project. And hopefully do that. That's where we are with the loan application. I did get some updates on the application, that the application has been assigned to a project manager at the state level. The time of this staff report it hadn't been assigned. I've spoken with the project manager. And, they wanted to let us know a couple things about the project and the application process. Tonight we will also be discussing a reimbursement resolution that we'd like to get approved. And once that's approved, we will upload that as well. And I will discuss that in detail once we get to that. The scoring for the application, we will be scored on our application on the project based on what priority it is. We'll receive a scoring on that in December. So by December, we have to have everything in completed and finalized. As soon as I get the environmental and technical portions in my hand and upload it, I will be in contact with the state to see what is needed and what is incomplete or what is required. Then in December, we'll receive our score on the project. We have to achieve a score between 13 and 14. That's 13 to 14 points. And there's three parts of scoring. There's the primary score, which is for how does this project fit into whether it's a drinking water project improvement, a project that is water quality, and get points based off of where your project is now. We're looking at probably hopefully getting about 7 points before we fall in on that project, on that portion of the scoring. And there's a secondary portion points, which is you have to adopt. We're looking to hopefully adopt a climate action plan with the Santa Barbara County. They have an overall climate control plan, the climate action plan that they've adopted and put into place for the county. And, we do fall in line with that based off of the township is saying, and it does cover the outline. Within the unincorporated areas of the county. And so we're looking to get about 3 points by adopting that. And then we'll have 2 more points based off completion of the application. So we'll give us 13. So we should be able to qualify based off of those points in December. Second part to that is we will receive our points, but if we do get approved for funding, the funding doesn't come into effect until fiscal year 21-22. So we wouldn't receive any funds until anywhere between July 2021 and June 2020. So we receive the funding for this project.
Okay, and is that a guarantee? Once it's approved, it's approved. But what if something weird happens? What if we have a 2008 situation and these things no longer are a priority to the state?
And that's something that I don't know an answer to that. I don't know what could happen. Take away the money from the state. Money should be there based off of what they're approved for during the fiscal year. And again, it's based off of our scoring and our ranking.
That's for loans, a loan.
Yes, that's for the loan to the SRF process. That's what was approved by the board will be loan to that.
They have a way to expedite the loan?
No, they did not.
It's just they have a year, I guess, when they get their funding and then.
So it's based off of fiscal year. They get their funding for that fiscal year. based off of our priorities.
I also may have misunderstood. You said that we need how many, 13 to 14 points?
Yes, 13 to 14 points.
And we get 7, just that's your estimate, we're gonna get 7 points for the primary. And then we're gonna get 3 points for the climate action plan adherence. And then we're getting 2 points.
3 points, I apologize.
Well, then we're at 13, so,
We're looking pretty good, as she said, based off of her initial review of the application, we should be good. Or at least to be approved for funding.
another thing that I'm curious, and you may have to research a little to get this answer, but on the condition that we are in compliance with the county climate action plan, I would want to know what's in that, only because this is California and sometimes it's like no cars by 2030 or, you know, something wild. That-
Definitely, my plan is to review the plan. I will review it, I will send it over to legal counsel for review as well. We will bring the whole plan forward to the board with the resolution for review by the board. That will hopefully be next month.
Question, so when would we know that we're basically approved? And
Again,
by January, but we might not get funded till,
somewhere in that fiscal year.
but we have enough cash that we can keep the project going and reimburse ourselves
That is one option that we can take.
for a lower interest rate.
And then we'll discuss the reimbursement resolution, how that will work.
Okay.
Yes, we definitely have the cash available to continue the process if we want to start today in spring of next year, 2021.
And that's acceptable with them.
Yes, that's why we're adopting the reimbursement resolution.
I had similar concerns because I would hate to get as far in and we've got this momentum going and then it be like, okay, everyone, we just have to wait one more year and we will get that funding. I would like to have a backup plan, like we will loan the money and repay ourselves with the loan. We'll get into that when you discuss the funding.
I think like Mr. Perry is asking, if we know we're going to get approved for the loan in January, then we can go ahead.
There's no way to get extra points on this thing, but I can see that this project improves drinking water. It is not a lot of people matter into the groundwater.
That's exactly,
And it also improves the groundwater.
that's exactly what we're getting.
Seems to me, we should get a couple of points.
That's where we're getting 7 points from. It's going to improve the groundwater quality, right?
I mean, 13 is just on the edge. If something goes haywire, wouldn't it be better to have 15 points than 13 points?
Well, you know, you also have like a trump card that you have people who can't flush their toilets. How valuable is that to a priority? That, I don't even know if they consider that, or there's an addendum for that. You know, there's what, 3 or 4 people who have trouble leaching the line out, therefore their home becomes possibly uninhabitable. So I would think that would be something we could also put on the table to expedite our number, pop that number up if need be.
So what I can explain is that there are certain criteria that they rate off of. So it's not like you can throw something in there and say, can you get points for this and you get points for that. So there are certain criteria. And the one about improving groundwater quality and ensuring that we don't contaminate the aquifer, that's what we're getting our 7 points. So that's what we're going to work for. I will say she did reassure me by stating if we are on the cusp, she will work with us to try to get us that point or to that.
And where is the criteria if we want to look and see where the points are? Just because I think that definitely Director Redfern has a good eye for things and understanding. And I always have like a little different view than other people, but I would be very interested in how it is scored because I usually can think of benefits other people don't see.
What I would do is I can forward you the link that it has the criteria.
I just like it, yeah, to be more informed about the process. Sounds good, but I also felt very uncomfortable being like just barely making it, even if they said, well, we'll drag you.
We have other funding.
13, 14, 20. I gotta have 14 and 13.
No,
Yeah, a little
We also
buffer.
have other financing options also.
Right. And that was another question, but I was going to wait till we get to the financial point, but yeah, we can do things to make sure we have a plan B. But we'll talk about that when we get to the financing. You can explain. So once we've applied for this, we can not apply for anything else, but we can also be exploring and thinking what options we might have.
December, January for other options, bring back options that we did explore earlier this year as far as SBA loan, USDA loan. Bring those options back.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or discussion? Oh, you're still on this.
Still
Okay,
on.
yes.
That's just
Go
a
ahead.
loan
sir.
application. It was good to hear from the state saying that we have been assigned in our application. Update further next month, and I'll provide that link so that way the board can use the process for the SR. About 38 page document I'll forward it on.
Thank you.
Next item is the easement procurement. That Springford, Hammer, and Jewel has been maintaining communication with staff regarding the appraisal of the lead property. They have some questions that the engineer and I went out to review the questions that they had as far as what line, how the project lines up on the property, what we would replace, or if there's some trees out there, some paving, what we would replace, and some answers to those questions. She forwarded that on to the appraiser. So they're working on finalizing the submittals for the offers, but before they can do that, they will also need the environmental clearance, which is what we're getting completed tomorrow as well. So they're also waiting that report so that way they know what numbers to include in the final one. That's on the easement process, right?
Any pushback from them?
No, we still haven't heard anything from any of the property owners because we haven't made any offers. We haven't heard back from Larson. We had a meeting, initial meeting with her, which I said was a follow-up meeting, and got canceled. Anything further. She is in contact with the Heart, and she has been in contact with the representative for Mississippi as well. No, like that. The last thing is the monitoring. At the board meeting, the board expressed their concerns with high groundwater levels in the vicinity of the project. Staff reached out to local engineering firms for geotechnical engineering services. Earth Systems, what they recommended was drilling 2 monitoring wells. One in the middle of,
Yes.
they recommended drilling 2 monitoring wells to monitor the groundwater levels. We want to try to get this completed prior to the rainfall, and then the rainfall become available after.
Decide where they're going to put the wells.
Any questions on that before we get into more details? Have the board comment.
I do have a couple of questions about the wells, just because people on the board have expressed concern about the water tables and there being a lot of water there. And we have also discussed cost and keeping costs to a minimum. So I wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to, if they wanted to comment. This looks like, was about $6,000 was.
There's nothing in there.
Each or both of them?
The obvious upside is that we have somebody who does this for a living, that is a professional, that can maybe save us some money avoiding problems. The downside is that we're paying for it. It adds a little extra cost. And Mike did not need to be on this call, the engineer. I'm sure he would not have a problem with it, but he felt like he had baked into the cake the possibility of you know, that there was a lot of water there. That's what I remember. So any questions about that, or do we all feel good with proceeding with the $5,900? Oh, go ahead.
We'll talk about that.
Okay. Okay.
This is just to give you a staff update on the horizon project.
Okay, so we will have an opportunity to comment if people, okay, very good, very good. Mr. Battles has some comments.
Are there going to be comments for the public first before I make comments? I wasn't able to tell.
There is no public here, and there
Okay.
is no public online.
Okay.
Jay is still online, but he's pretty good at messaging me, and he's got
Okay.
no comment on the last one after he fixed my mute problem.
Are the people in attendance there able to hear me over the computer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I just had a few questions and comments relating to the contract. It looks like the proposal is addressed to Cannon Associates in Kilbourne. And I'm wondering if the thinking is that Cannon would retain Earth Systems as a subcontractor under their umbrella, or whether the contract would be directly with the district. The proposal is to, it looks like it's to Cannon, so that's something that maybe would need to be clarified. So that's a question. And then in terms of comments, I would just observe that this appears to be an estimate, not to exceed amount. So it's basically time and materials without a not to exceed cap, I think, which is probably not a big issue on a small contract like this. And then the other comment I would make is this probably does represent a public works contract, but it's under the threshold so that it doesn't have to go out to competitive bidding. But there are still other considerations when you enter into a construction project as a public agency, things like permits. The proposal indicates that an encroachment permit wouldn't be required. And I would guess there's an exception for a construction project this small, exploratory drilling and whatever. I just don't know that for sure. So I think it would be important to confirm that. And technically this probably triggers CEQA review because it's a project being undertaken by the district. And that can be handled pretty simply with just a notice of exemption and a preliminary environmental review form that makes a finding that there's an exemption that applies. I don't know offhand specifically what exemption that might be, but I think it would be important to look at that. It may feel like a bit of overkill because it is such a small project, and why complicate it with all of this? But I do think technically CEQA review is required on something like this, and probably just an exemption would handle it. And another thing that indicates to me that this is a public works contract is they're talking about the filings that are required with the Department of Industrial Relations, and any contractor that takes on a public works contract has to make a filing and has to be on file that way. So, that's just another indication there. And then I guess the last thing I would comment on is there are these terms and conditions attached, which we talked about in connection with the recent review of the Cannon contract, how we did some revisions to their standard terms and conditions, and we're comfortable with them going forward. And we recently revised those terms and conditions to address the indemnity clause and make it comply with current law. These standard terms and conditions don't address everything that we would like to address. Probably if we did our own standard addendum, for example, insurance, it doesn't require the contractor to maintain insurance and name the district as an additional insured, and that's pretty important. It's less important if the contract is with Cannon, because then it becomes more of Cannon's problem. And then the indemnity clause requires the district to indemnify the consultant here rather than the other way around. It's the consultant that's providing the services, and yet the district is indemnifying the service provider. So it's not uncommon to see that in proposed terms and conditions from a contractor, but I think it's always appropriate to have the consultant indemnify the district, since it's the consultant that's providing the services and could subject the district to liability. a minor change. It doesn't specifically say that we get copies of all of the documents. It just says that we'll have a license to use them. And that's another thing that we often address in an addendum or in a cleanup to terms and conditions. So I say all of that, but I do recognize this is a contract for less than $6,000, and you probably don't want to invest a lot of attorney's fees in addressing points like this, but I did want to call them to your attention.
I think it's important, and I also think that it's important when you're dealing with water and drilling, sometimes a little project can get expensive. So I think it's worth noting that. And so obviously, Jose is listening and would respond,
I
yes.
prefer to address this when we get to that.
Okay, makes sense.
That's
Okay, Mr. Battles, does that work for you?
I wasn't able to catch his comment.
He said that he intends to address this when we get to the portion where we're going to be going over the financing.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? No? Okay, so then we will go ahead and move on to item B, review and approve contract with Earth Systems for geotechnical services related to the Horizon Drive. Did we just do that one? Okay, but I'm reading what we just talked about. Okay. Oh, okay. So now we're going to talk about the thing that we should be talking about now.
I apologize. I wasn't able to catch the conversation in the background, and it sounded to me like we'd moved on to this already, which is why I jumped in. So I apologize for taking those comments out of order.
Well, it's all on the same project, so a lot of this information does bleed together and overlap a little bit. So, but we're going to go ahead and go to number B to review and approve the contract with Earth Systems, and go ahead, Mr. Acosta.
So, this will impact implications of this project would be $5,950 to have Earth Systems for the monitoring of the Horizon project. Alternative to be considered would be for the board to find these services and seek alternative methods for monitoring. I don't have any alternatives listed because I haven't delved into other alternatives that I can for this. Again, the board has expressed their concern of high groundwater levels at the Horizon area, and they said they negatively impact the contractor's ability to properly perform the construction of the project. And the second concern is the cost of the overall project to be driven up based on the contractor needing to maintain adequate methods and equipment to dispose of the groundwater if encountered. Staff has contacted their systems for recommendations on methods for calculating and monitoring the water flow. Their recommendation has been to drill 2 monitoring wells at the building to be able to monitor the water levels during and after and prior to the construction of this project.
How often they drill it, do they monitor at 550 a visit? Once a month?
It depends on how many visits we want, but I would not procure them to do the monitoring. We would do it in-house.
Full month,
Yeah.
Good idea.
That would save us $550 a visit, and it's not, I can go up there and monitor as well, so I can train the crew on how to do that. These aren't very difficult to
Yeah,
monitor.
fishing weight and piece of string dropping down the bottom.
But, you know, we purchased a better device, if we can. But you're absolutely right, Mr. Redford. You're absolutely right, Mr. Redford. It's not that difficult to monitor them. The wells would be drilled down to 30 feet. They would have 2-inch diameter perforated pipe, and annulus around the pipe would be filled in with metal packing to allow for water to infiltrate into the well. They would provide drilling and copies of the boring logs that would be included with a brief summary log at the completion of the well. And that would tell us what toilet they encountered, what they encountered on the downward drilling the well, and if they encountered any water at all. Like I say, monitoring of the wells is not included in the cost of this project, but staff would do it in-house to minimize the cost of having it. Only way we want it final assessment prior to the project, or some groundwater monitoring, or you drop a little pump down there and go sample. We have a method so that we work after the at the commencement of the drilling well, the project manager and the construction contractor would have the ability to monitor the water levels as well. And we would try to include, we would include that into the contract RFP that we have to, we want the contractor to monitor the levels as they're on the project. They would have to have the equipment and the ability to construct the project. Or the questions Mr. Ballas brought up, they are great questions. They are things that are normally included in the contract. We utilize Canon as a middleman, so that way we weren't directly contracting with Earth Systems. It would fall under their umbrella, their contract with Earth Systems, with contract with Canon. And our contract with Canon should cover us, but the Ballas did bring up a good point that maybe we do want to review this contract, have legal respond with some of the items that they mentioned. That's something that we want to do. Like, provide that direction, I will contact our system, send the contract back with the input from attached. You see the scope of services, you see the estimate for this project. You'll also see the map that is attached as well. Well, proposed location is where the development is built and located. And I did mention at the previous board meeting that in 2015, there was a well drill 22 feet down with no water in our, and we were in drought season at that time, so it may not be anything that we encounter.
Where was the one drilled in 15?
Based off of the mapping that I received, it was right on the middle of the horizon of the close to it.
At the intersection of the two sewers there?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And who did that well?
That was, I don't know if it was Earth Systems, it was another geotechnical engineering firm, but it was Canon, retained their services to drill several wells throughout the west annexation.
This is my question. I remember talking about this, not in detail, but I do remember this coming up, talking to Mike, the engineer. And so I'm wondering, is this something that he would normally do as part of what Canon is doing in engineering this project? Because we asked Mike about the water, and he said that he had, he knows that there is some, and if he runs into it, that that bid had allowed for certain expenses, like I'm not being
So
very
many
clear.
hours of pumping.
Yes, so I'm wondering, is this something that is still, I'm a little confused, is this going to be through Canon that we're doing it? Would Canon retain these people? Does Canon have their own people?
And retain their system. This project is separate from the whole Horizon Drive project, in the sense that it's a separate contract project that we're going to be using to monitor the water. Not something that is going to be included in the RFP or the contract. And we would include in their statement, drilling 2 wells, getting wells there. So it's a separate issue from the Horizon Drive project.
And what is the main reason we want to do this?
Because the board has expressed their concern of high groundwater levels. So we want to make sure that we have the ability to monitor the groundwater. This is one of the methods to be able to do that. The system is a professional and
I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I just wonder why Canon isn't the one recommending this.
Canon is who I reached out to, which are just.
Right.
Go seek this proposal, go seek recommendations. Canon is who can be back to us as CSD for their recommendations. They're recommending.
had the board not expressed concern about the water, what would have happened?
There could have been an oversight on Cannon's behalf. Went out for the RFP. May not have had it. It may just have been an oversight that we didn't recognize that there could be potential groundwater there. But I can't answer that question based off of the Cannon.
Well, I'm just saying, based on our conversations as a board with Cannon, Mike was aware of the problem. He felt like he had a handle on it. And I'm not an engineer, but that's my only question.
So I do recall the statement is that, yes, Cannon did realize that there could be a potential for groundwater there, but based off of the concerns from the board, and it being more of a priority, to say, try to get this completed prior to going out for bid, then it comes out of our getting it done prior to that. That way we had an understanding, and we could provide the contractor with an understanding of what they need to get out there. That's why we did that prior.
I have a question. The current monitoring well that is there was 22 feet. And is that still, and that has not, that at the time it wasn't showing any water, but has anybody checked that well to see if it's still?
So what stating that it is a monitoring well may not be the correct thing. It could have been a boring sample, but then they just bore down and they refill it back in. It may not be a monitoring.
It may not be. That's what I was asking you. Do we actually need to drill one?
We can, I can contact Mike and see if there's actually a boring sample. A boring sample is different than a well.
Right, that's what, if there's already one there, do we really need to drill one right there? And is it a boring sample or is it a monitoring well? Not that I want to cheap out over $2,500, you know, or whatever it is. But
It's 6,000 and, you know,
right.
that's our job to see, you know, that it's not a huge amount, right? It's not 60,000 and we've spent tens of thousands on studies. So I hear you. I know that Frank has been here the longest. You're the senior board member, maybe not by years, but by at least several months. And so I know that we have discussed this project over the years and you probably understand a lot of things that I don't when Mike is talking. So I'm interested if you have an opinion here, Dr. Muller.
No, I mean, I do recall talking about this and being very, very worried about the high groundwater in this area, and that could actually drive a lot of expenses. So I mean, it seemed like it would be prudent to put these monitoring wells in there. I think that's what we always discussed on doing. I guess I'm a little bit unfamiliar with the process itself. And are these things like in the middle of the street, or are they on somebody's property, or?
They would be in the easement on the shoulder.
Okay.
In the shoulder, that would be monitored daily.
And they have like little manhole covers on them or whatever.
They
I've
have
never
a
seen
little
that.
cover on them, but we would build protection.
Yeah. But once you've monitored and you've put the pipes in the ground, well, they're of no longer any use to you, right? I mean, this is only really to monitor so that we know whether we're going to hit water or not, and it's going to be a real boomer, right?
Well, once we complete the project, yes, they will no longer be of any use. They could be used by other agencies, or we could use them as well, or in the future, if we wanted to monitor the groundwater quality, or if we just wanted to say what's necessary. When I say no further use of the project, probably won't use that.
Okay.
We wouldn't definitely wouldn't abandon them. I wouldn't recommend abandoning them.
That's
They could be
why I asked if that other one was actually a well, you know, a well or not.
The other thing that I thought about when you brought that up is it might be a hell of a lot easier to drill in that whole portion of that. Or extra 8 feet, maybe to get a little reduction. I don't know.
You drill. I've drilled wells and I had to re-drill the same well. They broke the casing on it and had to be re-drilled. And luckily, it was on the contractor, on the driller's dime, not mine. You know.
Their estimate is pretty reasonable from what that means.
I think it's reasonable and it helps me
I
understand.
make a motion to approve it.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Oh, you're not done yet.
Public
No,
comment.
no one on public.
Okay, there is no one here except Jay. Would you like to comment on this? No, no thanks. Well, are we going to discuss after the motions are made?
Right, if we want to make any changes to the contract.
Well, I just still had a little bit of discussion also. But we still have a motion on the table.
We should have a, not to
I like that. Mr. Battles, did you hear Director Redfern?
I did not.
He thinks that we should have a not to exceed as part of this, even though it's a small amount. What do you think? What is your?
I think that's always a worthwhile protection. It's hard to anticipate how the contractor might view it, given, you know, what their thinking is on the proposal. You know, at a minimum, they could agree to advise the district in advance before the cost was exceeded. But I certainly can't ask, it can't hurt to ask for a not to exceed cap.
Okay. And my other comment, it helps me to understand if these wells are ours, we commission them and we can use them for other things, like part of other studies, and it's helpful to know the water tables there. So it seems like a good investment. My reluctance was just the 4 years of listening to Mike come and present, and it wasn't something he ever recommended doing. And when the water tables have been discussed at every discussion, it's a concern to people, but Mike, the engineer, always felt like that was something that Cannon could deal with, and they anticipated the problem. So you're working with him. So obviously he feels like that's not, there's nothing wrong with doing this, and it may be helpful to him. Yes, so I get that. I just wanted to be clear. Okay, so we have a motion, and would you like to amend it to
Yeah.
add the,
I motion we approve it with a not to exceed dollar amount of, what, 6,500?
What they stated was what,
Or what they
59?
stated? Should we do it as what they've stated as the contract?
You could say not to exceed what's stated in the contract, if the cost is anticipated to be higher, that they address, they notify the district prior to proceeding.
okay, so you're saying to notify us before they proceed, or to have a set amount and to notify us?
To have a set amount, 5950, but they anticipate that it will cost notify us prior to proceeding to work.
Okay. And does that sound clear to you, Mr. Battles? Do you think that?
You know, I'm not able to hear the comments from the audience. I apologize. It seems we're probably gonna have to do a different system going forward, because I'm just missing most of the comments.
I agree. One thing I would like, it would be really nice if staff was on, you know, a monitor also, and we could hear them and speak directly. I would like to have Jose and Wendy. Oh. Well,
Sign it on their own Zoom. Sign it on their own Zoom. You have another laptop?
Wendy, when we were fiddling, trying to get myself unmuted, there was a volume switch, and normally, you know, I don't need full volume, but it might help if we were able to do that.
You come across nice and loud on my end, Karen. It's, I think, people that are maybe on the other side of the computer. And I apologize for the inefficiency and holdup on having to repeat everything for me.
It's just everybody is doing their best with all this Zoom stuff, and we're fortunate to have Jay, but I can hear you, but it's tough. I wish that Jose could be heard a little better.
So the motion was that we approve the contract with a not to exceed and notification prior if there's, the project goes over the not to exceed.
Okay,
Could you hear Director Beard all right?
I can hear him fine.
Okay, Director Beard has made a motion. Do we have a second? Director Redfern has seconded. And is there any public comment? There is none. So, Wendy?
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Beard and a second by Director Redfern to approve the first systems contract with a not to exceed $5,950 and notification prior to 16.
Aye.
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 Very good. Now we shall go to C, 6C. And this is to adopt Resolution 2010, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Santa Ynez Community Service District repealing Resolution 1701 and adopting revised installment payment policy for capacity fees and related costs. So shall go to our general manager, Mr. Acosta.
So tonight we'll be discussing adopting the resolution, repealing resolution 1701 and adopting 2010. This will allow the property owner to pay over a 20-year period with some new additions to the resolution, which I will allow Mr. Battles. I'll pass on to Mr. Battles as he compiles the resolution. He compiled the revised policy. Mr. Battles, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm going to pass it on to you, please.
Okay, very good. So the district initially approved an installment payment policy in 2015, and that allows property owners to defer the costs for certain expenses that they incur when they connect to the district sewer system. And included in those costs that can be paid over time in installments are the cost of constructing a lateral, and associated plumbing, septic system abandonment. The big item was capacity fees, and then miscellaneous things, miscellaneous district fees like permit and inspection and plan check fees. Also, what could be deferred are the project 1 and 2 fees, which are a form of capacity fees, and district staff time and noticing costs and publication costs because there's a certificate of lien and a public hearing notice. So that was the initial policy. And then in 2017, the district revised that policy to address certain issues that arose in connection with the West Santa Ynez annexation. And it was determined that that the annexation fee, which they didn't pay at the time when the annexation got approved, should also come under the installment payment policy so they could pay that in installments over time. And that's a significant fee. And then also they could pay over time a portion of the mainline extension that would be required to service that area. That wasn't previously covered under the installment payment policy. Before, the policy contemplated that the only people that would qualify are those that already have a main line or those that are prepared to build a main line at their expense. So if they already had a main line or would build one and they were already annexed, then they could take advantage of the installment payment policy and pay their capacity fees and other expenses over time. But the certain representations were made and assurances were given to the West Santa Ynez property owners about not having to pay anything and making it easy, et cetera, et cetera. So, and at one point there was a commitment to have the annexation fees be payable over time. And so that's why we're revising the installment payment policy at this time to address those issues. We did some other cleanup as well in there. But what brought this to the forefront was at a board meeting a month or two ago, I guess it was the July board meeting when you approved an installment payment agreement for the property at 3250 Samantha Drive, you indicated that you wanted to have a due on sale clause in that agreement, where if the property sold, all the installments become due and payable. And as part of that discussion, you directed me to put a due on sale clause in that particular agreement, and then to revise our policy to incorporate a due on sale requirement. So that's one of the things that we did here. So the revised policy that you're considering tonight, finding a quick summary here. It adds the annexation fees for parcels that are within the West San Ynez area. Other parcels are still going to have to be annexed to the district before they connect. It establishes, this is another thing, and this is really based on conversations between Wendy and I. It establishes a flat fee of $500 to cover district staff time and legal counsel costs. The first one of these we did was pretty expensive because we were inventing the wheel, and they're cheaper going forward, maybe even cheaper than $500 if we were to churn out a lot of them at once. So there was a certain inequity in requiring early adopters to pay a high cost and later people to pay a very small cost. So we decided just that it would make sense, and it would be our recommendation that there just be a flat fee, and that way costs don't have to be tracked. The revised policy adds the due on sale clause, as I mentioned. And then a practice that we followed is that depending on the timing, it may not be possible to put the initial installment payments on the tax roll because the date is already passed for the report to go to the county. So in those cases, and this is what happened on the recent installment payment plan for the Samantha Drive property, we collected the first two installments in advance because they weren't going to be paid with the two property tax payments. So we collected those in advance, and now the policy specifically says that. So those are the changes. And then you'll see in the staff report that there are some things that you can consider at this time, since we are revising the policy. You could leave it as it is without doing anything special for the West San Ynez area. You don't have to include a deal on sale clause. You could do that on a case-by-case basis. Basically leave it unchanged is option one. You could repeal it entirely if the feeling of the board at this point in time is that the district shouldn't be financing costs of private property owners if they can't afford to connect to the sewer and pay the capacity fees. They should go out and get a loan. The district isn't in the business of financing these things. That's a policy determination. Previously, the board's inclination was that it wanted to do what it could to help in order to get people to connect. But you can certainly review that now or at any time in the future. There's a list of eligible costs, and you can look at whether you think all of those are appropriate. We talked about the annexation fee being included, the mainline extension cost being included. From the beginning, there has been included the cost of septic system abandonment and construction of a private lateral to connect to the main. And a comment was made by one of the directors recently that shouldn't be in the policy. So, that's something for you to think about. If we're going to take it out, now would be a good time to do that. I would observe, though, that the only time that gets paid for by the district is if the district does the construction. If the private property owner contracted to have the septic system abandoned and a lateral constructed, the district wouldn't pay the contractor in that case and then defer the payments over time. It's only if the district undertook those construction activities that it would qualify for installment payment arrangement, and that may not happen. It's really, I think, going back to when the policy was first developed, those were included because, number one, they're specifically identified by statute as costs that the district can defer the payment for over time. And two, there could be situations where, if you're putting in a big project, it might make sense for the contractor to construct laterals and abandon the septic tank so that you don't have dozens or hundreds of people connecting over time and going into the street and connecting and doing all of that construction. You do sometimes see agencies, when they're putting in a big mainline project, go ahead and just connect all the laterals because it makes some economic sense. So including those costs was to address a scenario like that. I don't know how likely it is. I think that again is a policy decision for your board. The interest rate is currently 1% above prime, and in connection with the Santa Ynez project, there was some discussion that the interest rate ought to be whatever the district's financing costs are. But it does seem to me that the district's financing costs only relate to the construction of the main line. And there aren't any financing costs when you look at the other district costs and, for example, the capacity fees and the annexation fees. So it's not clear to me why you would want to have a lower interest rate for those types of fees when the district isn't financing them anyway. So it's just something for you to think about and make a determination on. I think that's all I have.
Director Redfern has a question for you.
I have one question.
Oh, he has a comment, excuse me.
When I worked here, we did all our connections, and we didn't do the homeowners did their lateral. Everything got connected to the main home, we did. That wasn't an option, and that we didn't have a contractor to do it. We did, and we did the inspection of all those lines, and that, there were or is maps of every sewer system for every home, as far as I know. Unless they can point out.
Were you able to hear that, Mr. Battles? It's okay.
Most of it, I could catch that it was relating to the lateral issue.
Director Redfern made the point that when he worked here, and it was up until the mid 2000 aughts, 2004, that the district did all of the laterals in-house. Oh,
Of the lateral, and then we inspected, or we did the connection ourselves.
Oh, okay.
We didn't do the digging.
But off of your main line, you have a stub that runs to the property line, or inside the property line, footer too. And that's what they're gonna connect to. They don't actually get to do the connection. Everything has to be paid first. We inspected everything, make sure it's vetted correctly. We mapped it. And then when everything was okay, then we made the connection, we made it back.
We still do that work. You're absolutely right. Everything from the main line to the frontage of the property is work that we perform this. Stuff the customer would do from the house up to that point, and then we would make the final connection with it.
Okay, so, but the actual connection is done in-house.
Right.
Done by CS.
Yes. Are there any other comments or questions regarding this? And once again, no indication of any public comment. So what we're looking for here is for the board to make a motion to approve the resolution 2010. Well, that's what I was asking questions and comments. It didn't sound like anybody did want to remove anything. Is there anything that you would want to change, Director Beard, or anyone? Okay, well,
Okay, and I had a question. Rick, what was he recommending, what were you recommending we not put in there? The lateral?
I wasn't really recommending that anything be changed. I was just pointing out that there had been some discussion about maybe some costs shouldn't be covered.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to finance the lateral, but I mean, up to the property line.
I think he's right, Rick's right. We shouldn't have it in here, because somebody gets hold of that idea,
Right,
and they're gonna think we are gonna finance their lateral.
yeah, no.
okay. So were you able to hear the comments, Mr. Battles?
No, I'm sorry.
That Director Redfern and Director Beard think that it is unnecessary and even possibly not a good idea to even have the lateral as part of what will be financed. So that's something we would want to take out.
Okay, and it's only It would be financed only if the district constructed them. So the district would have some control over that. If the district decided to take on the construction of the lateral, then it could finance it. And if the property owner did it on its own, it wouldn't be an option to finance it through the district.
Okay, I'm okay with
That helps.
How about the abandonment of the wet well?
Oh, well, that's not,
That's always the homeowner, it's always been that way.
yeah, that should be that.
But isn't that something that we could bring up?
It's in here as an option to finance.
I would take that out.
So that is a similar concern that we don't want to be involved in financing anything on their side.
So I think what Mr. Battle is stating is that if the homeowner does the work as far as lateral, and we're not required to do it, whereas if we have a huge project and we went in and did a total reconstruction and connection of sewer project, some entities, some districts, some cities have gone in and completed the whole process from abandonment to everything to complete connection. And that's when it could be financed, which we don't anticipate ever doing here, but maybe there's a clause that is in there that if we did do it, then it could be financed. If we don't take on that responsibility, which we probably never will, hopefully, then we don't finance that. Is that correct, Rick?
Yeah, and that's essentially how it's drafted now. It's not worded quite that way, but that is the effect where it says, it says that laterals and septic system abandonment are eligible costs, but then there's another provision that says they're eligible costs only if the district constructs them.
Okay, is everyone comfortable with that language? So now, then I would want to entertain a motion to approve resolution 2010. Do we have a motion? Well, I'm comfortable making the motion. Would anyone like to second it? Director Beard has seconded my motion to approve resolution 2010. Wendy?
We have a motion by Director Jones and a second by Director Weir to approve resolution number 20-22, resolution number 71, adopting revised installment payment policy for the Massachusetts State Fund.
Hi. Thank you. Now we go to 6D, adopt resolution 2011, a resolution of the Board of Directors sending SYCSD regarding expenditures for Horizon Drive Mainline Extension Project. Action item that I will turn over to our General Manager, Jose Acosta.
So the board directs staff to seek financing for the Horizon Drive Mainline project through the Clean Water Space Development Fund. In this process and application, there is a policy or a resolution to be adopted by the board to recoup any costs that occurred prior to funding of the loan. So, the resolution will allow the CSD to reimburse itself eligible costs expended prior to loan approval and disbursement. Once the funds have been approved and disbursed for the project, otherwise the district won't be reimbursed for these costs. Adopt this resolution. The only alternative is for the board not to consider being reimbursed for the eligible costs expended prior to the approval and disbursement of costs. At the board meeting on the 22nd of July 2020, the board authorized the general manager to proceed with the loan application and loan project estimated cost for $700,000. CSD has experienced some costs associated with this project prior to applying for the loan. They incurred more debt prior to the approval of the state water board project. With the adoption of resolution 2011, the board is authorizing the CSD to reimburse itself for expenditures proceeds of the loan. The timeline for reimbursement of the expenditures related to construction costs is 60 days prior to the adoption of this resolution. We have incurred no construction or project management costs, so that is that doesn't apply to us. So if we adopted now, any construction costs from this point forward would be best to get this resolution adopted soon. That way, in the process, right in the application, cost for the first. Tentatively, I put in here was understood that soft costs such as engineering and design costs to be reimbursed further out in that 60-day period. So all of the processes that we have done prior, which is construction costs, that those can all be reimbursed, and that has been confirmed with my conversation with the project manager at our application. So we must make this resolution, prove it, be able to approve those costs once they're approved in this first. Again, the resolution should be adopted to allow any costs from this point forward to be reimbursed once the funds are approved and disbursed. And attached, you will see a copy of the resolution that is being considered this evening. This resolution is a template that was provided by the state as well. We recommend that we can make very many changes to it, as it's easier for them to view it and approve it because it's based off the members' requirements. Do I have any questions regarding the reimbursement?
That's what I was going to ask, Mr. Battles, do you have any comment that you would like to make about this resolution?
I don't. I did make some edits just to make the form provided by the state fit better our facts in our district. But I don't have any comments beyond that. I think it's in a position for the district to adopt.
Thank you.
I make a motion we approve as is.
Director Beard has made a motion to approve
I'll
as
make a
is.
second.
Director Deambra has made the second. Are there any public comments? Don't see any public comments, so I say, Wendy, go ahead and vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Wendy. And now we shall go to manager's report with Manager Acosta.
I have several items to present to the board this evening, part of my manager's report. First thing I would like to present is a letter for the Sullivan Chamber of Commerce that was requested last week. I sent it forwarded to all board members so that they can review it and understand what the letter was. We have received some feedback from individual board members. So I did compile the letter. I would like to read the letter and get any feedback. If we want to take any action or have any further review, then we should probably agendize this and call for a special meeting or then add a later date. That way the board could take action. But at this time, I'm going to read the letter that I plan to submit. Open to any comments. We probably can't take any action for tonight.
I did have a question with legal counsel because the chamber director is one of our directors. So is that in any way an indirect conflict if Director Beard is involved in a conversation about making a recommendation for a letter for a loan application for the chamber?
Can I say something real quick? Rick?
Sure.
Rick, I just want to clarify what this letter is for. The City of Sullivan Chamber of Commerce is looking to get approval from USDA and its multiple federal agency partners on a possibility to be able to obtain grants for disadvantaged agricultural communities within the valley. And so what they're looking for is surrounding communities to provide letters of recommendation or letters of approval or stating that we support this as well. So that's the basis of this letter. It was submitted by Ms. Tracy Beard, and which is wife of Mr. David Beard, so that's what Karen's question is coming.
And I stand corrected. It is a grant. Is not a loan. It is appealing for a grant.
So does the grant go to the chamber, or is the chamber requesting the grant on behalf of some other organization?
They're requesting, I believe they're requesting it on behalf of Allen Hancock College.
Center of Community Prosperity.
Yeah. And they get a very, chamber gets a very small portion of it.
The chamber does.
Yeah.
Yeah, the issue there that I see is a director can't be involved in a decision that has an effect on their personal financial interests. And personal financial interests are defined to include sources of income for a spouse. So to the extent that the action that the director participates in has a financial effect on the director's spouse's employer, then you could have a financial interest. There is a threshold that changes all the time that I would need to look up. It used to be $500, but it may have changed because I haven't looked at it recently. So that's something that.
Yeah, that was my only
Yeah,
problem.
I'd asked the same question.
Yes, yeah, and we've
I
talked
asked
about
the
this
same question in
before.
my response, so I have no problem recusing.
Yes,
myself.
I would feel a lot
Yeah,
more comfortable discussing this just based on, if I'm going to get $100 stipend for going to a LAFCO meeting.
Yeah.
It's always, it's the appearance of impropriety. It's not even a dollar amount. We don't want anybody to come back and say, oh, one of our directors is doing sweetheart deals for their spouse or trying to help their spouse.
Yeah, and so Director Beard should announce the fact that he has a personal financial interest because his wife is associated with the Chamber of Commerce, and that's a source of income, and then he should recuse himself and leave the room, and that should be in the minutes.
Okay, Wendy is going, and we're going to do it the right way, because especially if we do decide to proceed, I would really want this to be as clean and proper as can be. Okay, Director
So
Beard.
I feel I have a personal interest in this through my wife, so I would recuse myself.
Okay, thank you, Director Beard. Director Beard is leaving the room, Wendy, so you can make a note of that for our minutes. Okay, now you can go ahead and read the letter.
Okay, so Rick, you can listen to the letters, that way if you have any comments as well, please. So the letter states, Dear Ms. Beard, the San Ynez Community Service District is pleased to see that northern Santa Barbara County and San Ynez Valley neighboring communities have designated by USDA and multiple federal agency partners as, quote, the Allen Hancock College Center of Community Prosperity, unquote, one of only 3 currently designated areas in California, that the, quote, bottoms up, unquote, approach of the centers of prosperity are an effective means of finding locally driven solutions to the challenges and needs of the community. Paving the way for the region to access more support from federal resources under the administration's Rural Prosperity Initiative will allow for better infrastructure when it comes to water, wastewater, broadband, education, workforce development, and food insecurity for the agricultural sector of the valley. The resources that can be provided with this assistance to the local disadvantaged agricultural sector would be beneficial in allowing them to seek assistance with infrastructure, asset identification and management, and resources for strategic planning and action. The San Ynez Community Services District understands that the local needs assessment will become part of a broader needs assessment being coordinated by Econ Alliance as part of its role as facilitator of the Community Council of Faith and Opportunity. With Econ Alliance and Allen Hancock College and key community representatives working with USDA to foster additional support for the community prosperity region. Lastly, the San Ynez Community Service District looks forward to understanding the identification of needs, resources, challenges, and opportunities to the community at large.
Before we discuss it, I don't know, Rick, did you get a copy of the request?
No.
And it's not in here. I can't find it in my email. Does anyone have it?
So what it is, I placed it on the manager's report.
Oh, I can't find it.
So it's not, you're not going to find it on the manager's report in the agenda.
Oh.
Because I'm reporting out as a manager's report. As I stated, I did send everyone an email prior to the meeting, showing the template, showing a sample of what a letter would look like, and saying that I would bring this forward. Yes.
I'm a little lost. Anybody that's farming here has property. Anybody that has property here has money. I'm kind of failing to see disadvantaged people farming here. They already have tons of money. They're gonna give rate throwers more money, maybe Firestone, who the hell is it gonna be? I'd really like to know who this is for and why are we involved in it?
But my question is along the lines of, why are we involved? And I want to ask a question that I learned from John Dornalis. Why would we want to do this? And so I weigh the pros and cons, and I see that there are all these community organizations and it's going to go through the chamber. And I get really uncomfortable with that because we're a public agency and we're endorsing something for a Chamber of Commerce. And I've just seen that play out really badly all over the valley. I don't like municipal government agencies working with the chamber. It just has, getting back to that appearance of impropriety. I know that the people who I talk to, I don't talk to all 800 homes or the extra 400, but the ones that do talk to me are very uncomfortable. I had complaints when we had somebody working here who was a president of the chamber. And it seemed like, you know, is he using our sewer fees to be promoting chamber activities? And even if that he wasn't, it still had that appearance. So I don't know that it's something, I don't know that we want to endorse nonprofits that are seeking grant money. I don't see what it will do for us, but I see some blowback from it. But I'm interested in hearing from other directors.
Can I jump in with a question?
Oh, okay. Mr. Battles wanted to say something.
Yeah, is it proposed to bring this back as an agenda item?
I thought this was another thing why I would have liked to have the letter with me. I should have brought it in. But it was like, we'd like to hear from you in 7 days. And that was one of my concerns. I don't like people saying, hurry up and give me something. Because I did think it needed to be agendized and we needed to discuss it as an agenda item.
This is coming in under the manager's report, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so.
We did not have time to put on the agenda.
Yeah. So if you want to have any further discussion of it, you'd need to make a finding that this came to the district's attention after the agenda was posted and that there's a need to take immediate action. And you'd need to do that by a 4/5 vote of the board. Or if you've got somebody who's recused himself, then you'd have to do it by the full remaining board members. And then you could add it to the agenda and you could have a full discussion and you could take action on it tonight. But that's really, those are the questions. Is there really a need to take immediate action? Is this something that can't wait until the next board meeting? If they want to hear from you in 7 days, it sounds like maybe you can't wait. And did this come to the attention of the board after the agenda was posted? Those are the two tests.
Well, the first test, yes, it did come after the agenda was, oh, it didn't. I misunderstood.
So I haven't posted the agenda yet, but
The agenda was completed and the staff reports were completed and it came at a time right when staff was already off. So it came at a time that staff couldn't prepare a report or put it on the agenda and give enough time for staff to complete the report to put on the agenda.
Don't make poor planning our problem.
So Rick, as I mentioned, I wasn't looking to take, for the board to take action. If the board does want to deny this letter, I don't have a problem not compiling the letter, but if you're saying that that requires it to be agendized, then we either have a special meeting on this or just say, we're not going to submit this letter on behalf of the SYCSD.
Yeah, and I don't think the board can take any action or make a decision on it unless it makes those first two findings and officially votes to add it to the agenda. The alternative, which is ends up having the same effect, is the board could decide that they don't want this added to an agenda for a future meeting to take action. They're not interested in considering it at a future meeting, which has the effect of saying no to it. If the board wants to say yes to it, then it would have to add it to the agenda before it takes action or before it really has any further discussion of the merits.
What I would do right now then would be to ask my colleagues if there's anyone here who would like it added to a future agenda. And is there anyone that would like this added?
I'll add it to the future agenda. I read that. I didn't see anything that was negative about it. It offered money for water, wastewater grant.
If you're a farmer.
Well, and
Well,
through the
no,
Solvang
no,
Chamber.
No. I think you're taking a word out of context there. It was the rural communities, I believe, is something like that.
Yes, it's a Disadvantaged Rural Community Act. But my question is, it's fine. This is a wonderful thing if there's grant money, but I don't see where it's wonderful for us. If it was a grant that we were getting, but if I wanted a grant, or if we want a loan, or we want money from the FDA, what is it? Give me the US, yeah, the USDA, we would apply. Like I wouldn't ask the Chamber of Commerce to apply for us. So I don't see what we get out of this.
Approve our funding for the Horizon extension. Why are they asking us for this for them?
Well, it's not the city of Solvang, it's the Chamber of Commerce of
It's Allen
Solvang.
Hancock College who's gonna be the distributor.
Yeah, and I need to jump in again. You really can't discuss this if it's not on the agenda.
Okay, so Bob, well, let's just get back to business. Thank you. This is why we have legal counsel right here. So Director D'Ambra has made a motion that this be placed on a future, no? Oh, he has requested that this be placed on a future agenda.
Really quick, Rick, they are requesting that this letter is submitted in a timely manner, so if we're gonna place it on a future agenda item, we probably need to call a special meeting.
And we can't add it to tonight's meeting. Is that what I understood?
It did not meet the threshold to add it as an emergency item now, Rick?
If it came to the district's attention after the agenda, before the agenda was posted, then you can't add it on an urgency basis.
Okay.
It's the minute the agenda gets posted, that's sort of the bright line test there. If you've already received the notification, then it's, even if you've prepared the agenda and it's all ready to go, if it hasn't been posted yet, and then you receive it.
We had one emergency thing added, and it was several years ago, and it came after 5, and I remember all this from then. So, I was trying to look at the letter because I remember that the letter said, I think the time I got it was at 420, and 420 is one of those numbers that you just go, oh, 420. Well, maybe you guys don't, but.
I posted the agenda at 4:49 on the website. And so it was submitted maybe 45 outside.
It seems like I received my agenda before I got the letter forwarded to me, but I sure could be wrong. The letter I found it finally, and it was sent to the CSD at 4:20. It left her mailbox, so it may not have been seen here at 4:20. It might have been seen here at 4:25,
It was after 5, at least
Oh.
5 p.m.
Oh, there we go. Well, there's the easy answer. The letter was sent, the email was sent, but it was not received or noticed by anyone until after hours. So yeah, the agenda was posted before it was received. Sending it isn't the same as getting it.
Okay, then if you want to add it to the agenda and have further discussion and take action on it, there should be a motion finding that the district became aware of it after the agenda was posted and there's a need to take immediate action. You need a motion, a second, and a vote on that.
Okay. Is there a motion to add this as an emergency item to this agenda?
Tonight,
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Director D'Ambra has made the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Director D'Ambra, a second by Director Mueller.
And that motion includes those two findings, correct?
Yes, the finding that this was received after the agenda was posted. Oh, excuse me, reviewed. Reviewed after the agenda was posted. And the other criteria,
There's a need to take immediate action,
a need by us or a need by them.
just a need to take immediate action.
So, and there is a need to take immediate action.
And reviewed isn't the operative word, it's received. If nobody's here to receive it, then it wasn't reviewed or received. So, you know, and
You're
it's
so much more concise than me. That's what I was trying to say with all those words. Okay, so we have met the threshold and Director Deambra has made a motion. Director Mueller has seconded for the emergency addition. So Wendy can do a roll call.
We have a motion by Director Deambra and a second by Director Miller to add the item, the letter to the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce with a finding that this item was received after the agenda was posted and there's a need to take the action to do a vote. Director Redfern?
I don't know what we're even talking about. So I'm gonna say yes, or I guess, just to hear it, but I'm not for it, until I know what they're talking about.
Director Muller?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye,
Director Deambra?
I,
I'm being collegial.
Now we can talk.
Yes, so now we can discuss it, yes.
Now adding is, having to be good.
Okay, so now we have agendized it, so we should probably rehash the comments. I know Director Redfern had some questions, you had some comments, you just like, you don't see a problem with it. My problem with it is endorsing other people's requests. If they want to get grants for disadvantaged community stuff, that's nice. It's nice to get your tax dollars back, but I would endorse asking for stuff for this. The CSD asked for what we want. I don't want to go through Allen Hancock College and especially a business promotion, a tourism kind of thing promotion.
that's, you know, the reality is someone's asking for help. They're asking for your support. This is a small community. One of the reasons we all live here. They asked for our support. You know, turnabout's fair play. I don't see anything negative whatsoever there. It looks to me like there's funding for things that need to be funded, people that need to get help in one way or another. There was comments in there about water and sewer. Maybe we get somebody throws some nickels and dimes into the trough for that. That helps. But beyond that, it's a neighborly thing. You know, we may want support next week, next year on something that may not be important to them, but it's important to us, and they're asking for support, and we're asking for support. I think it's a good neighborly thing. Reach your hands out. It's all good. I don't see any negative there. I know there's, you know, some.
Well, yes, I can tell you the negative that I see is that it's a business. It's a chamber. It promotes businesses and mainly the tourism business, but all businesses, the little shops downtown. And I agree it's neighborly, and I think you should write a letter and support it. I think you should just like we would support another candidate. I like this. That's a nice neighborly thing to do, but I don't think we should spend staff time writing letters. And I don't think we want our staff putting ourselves in a relationship with the business community that isn't even our community per se. That's my argument here.
The bottom line is, I don't even know why you voted yes if you're not going to support it.
Well,
Or you, Frank.
because of what Frank said, he wanted to hear it.
We're talking about. I don't know what we're talking about. I don't
They
know.
asked
I wish
for a
you would have
letter.
voted no. I would have
Did you
liked
read
it
the
with
letter?
that. Yeah.
I haven't read the letter. Wendy sent me a notice saying that you had sent me something. I saw the this and went, okay, there it is. I didn't see anything else. So I
They
never
asked-
read the letter, never saw it.
Is this an exaggeration? They asked for some support to get some federal money to help low-income people in this rural community, which, you know, maybe it's a 50-mile radius, whatever. Yeah, the Chamber of Commerce has their hands in, they're probably the liaison for this, because they, you know, they search for grants and stuff all day long, and things come up. And they might have thought, hey, you know what, this is a pretty good thing, you guys sign off, we'd really like your support. That's how I'm reading it. I don't see any personal
The last
gain.
great thing that's similar to this that I remember was in 1980 when we signed this deal to help the Chumash out and allow gambling. It opened up this huge window for these really wonderful people, really, to run without any restrictions.
Well, first of all, Frank, if I may interrupt you, that's a federal land and it's under federal jurisdiction. It has nothing to do with the state or the city of that. So that's out of our hands.
It is, but what isn't out of our hands is whether we're going to write letters of recommendation.
So we're spending a lot of energy on it. That's all I have to say.
And as
I
did
don't say
Jose.
anything negative.
Our staff did also.
The only thing that makes me wonder is are we getting more funding for people that are already well-funded themselves? It all sounds wonderful. It makes my toes curl.
Well, you
I
gotta
like
believe.
helping people.
You gotta believe, you know, you gotta believe that their hearts are in it, that they're doing this for the good of the people who need it.
I don't
And if you
care about
believe that-
hearts.
If you don't believe that, then don't support it. Don't support anything. That's all I'm saying.
Nah, that's a fallacy.
I'd say anybody that shoves something down the road says, I need a signature in 5 days, and then doesn't give you enough information to know what the hell we're giving our signatures for, is giving you the bum rush. They're trying to get something through that makes no sense at all. I want to know what we're giving our okay for.
Well, you know, logistically, it could be, that's a good point. Logistically, it could be they're trying to put it all, cum it all together and get it off for one reason or another. Yeah, maybe that could be it. I don't think it's there to,
Something stinks.
Should you talk
There's no
about
way
heart?
that it should be coming up with only 5 days for us to review it. If it's such an important deal, nobody's gonna make you do that. They're
Okay.
gonna give you time they're gonna give you 90 days to review it, come up with a plan, get everybody to sign on and go yay.
Can I
think
just have
Mr.
one point
Costa-
to make that I think is important. And it's important to you, Bob, because it's somebody's heart in it. I don't know people's heart, but I do know that the Chamber of Commerce is not motivated by love. They are trying to build a business. They want income for businesses, and the chamber pays a good salary to somebody to come out there and make that happen. And that's their deal. And there's nothing wrong with it. My father was a president of the Chamber of Commerce when I was a kid. He also did a lot of board work, and he kept the two really separate because one was business, one was a municipal thing.
But
And so
this
that's
isn't
my
the
bias.
chamber, Madam President, this is Allen Hancock College. They're just.
It's
simply
hungry
the-
children.
They're the liaison here, okay? And Allen Hancock is the beneficiary to distribute it. Is that correct? Okay,
Okay, well, that gives me a little more understanding. That sounds better. So really, the chamber, it's all, has nothing to do with it.
No, they're the ones who wrote the letter and asked for it. They're the ones pushing it.
they
Why
come,
isn't Hancock?
Yes,
I don't
because somebody's
understand.
getting another cut. Everybody wants their cut along the line. That's what this is.
be that as it may, the chamber, day in and day out, they run across all this stuff that's available for grants, for loans, for this, for that, you know, and.
To promote business. That's
Of
their mission. Read their
course,
mission
of course
statement.
they
They're
promote.
promoting business.
But
And that is in conflict with what the voters voted me to do. They wanted to keep this small.
And so do I.
Yeah.
Nobody wants us to keep it small.
Well, you're doing something to promote more people to come to the valley, more business, Chamber of Commerce, visitation.
I mean, you know, I would love to have a college here. And Allen Hancock having that small satellite college is great. And I'm totally in support of that. I don't know what that has to do with the sewer district, but I'm in support of that.
Okay, part of the comment was that there was possibly funding for water and sewer. Is that accurate, sir?
Well, but that doesn't mean anything. Yeah, well,
Well, not.
how is it going to get, it's not us, that's not how we get our money here, by going with our hat out to the chamber to get us a cut of a
Okay,
college
I'm
grant
just
at
saying,
Santa Maria.
Then
Let's do things,
Then are you
let's do
saying it's
common
a
sense.
fraudulent letter?
Is that what
I'm
you're
saying it's
insinuating?
appealing to people's hearts, and a lot of people like this stuff. For me, I like to keep the Chamber of Commerce and the, whether it's the sewer department, the water department, I just don't mix together those two
This
things.
funding was, it had to be offered to them before last week. It hasn't been out there for quite a while.
You know, I don't know, now we're just throwing us,
Yeah,
They
no,
asked-
there's a structure to the grants, right? So when you submit the grants, I know because I've written many of them. So you need a letter of support when you submit a grant. And there is a timeline on that. You submit it, you need to have those letters of support with you to say, you know, you're a viable organization, you know, you really do great things for the community, et cetera, et cetera. So that is something that you will need. And most likely, you know, we've done a lot of research. My company's done a lot of research with like universities, and we have to give the lion's share of it away back to actually the university. And some of the money comes to us, and the whole purpose of these grants is to actually put you into business, put businesses into business, right? Because that money is going to find its way back into the community by way of creating businesses, which can hire more people, et cetera, et cetera. So they're just looking for a letter of support. I think they've got a timeline, and that's why they said 7 days. You got to have it in by then, or don't, or not, right? So
I'm sorry, I think what you're saying is that's a rational reason.
it just wasn't
yeah.
stated that way, though. That was the part that got me, because my head was spinning when I was reading this thing, and that's why I didn't comment on it, because I was thinking, well, maybe somebody has more information. Because it didn't really say, it was a little nebulous. They could have said, we've applied for this grant X, and it does this, and then got into the specifics, but instead they didn't. They just said, hey, look, we're a good neighbor, can you vouch for us? That's the way I read it.
And it would be nice if it said, here's how it will benefit you.
Well,
And why you would want to support
what
this.
they had were shades of Alan Hancock, like this is how it's going to benefit you, because it's going to create this technical corridor, and we're bringing more, you know, we're proliferating the college, basically. That's the way I may have read it wrong, but that's the way I kind of understood it. That whatever this grant is that they're getting, they're actually trying to promote Alan Hancock College.
And the reason it's being done in conjunction with the chamber is because that's good for business. But this little town here isn't trying to promote and grow. I mean, we're kind of grown out about as much as we can at this point. And that's my concern. And I also, when I just come back and look at it, if I could be watching this, it's like, so a director's wife who gets paid to get money wants a letter from his board to help her get it. So for me, it just doesn't pass that smell test. I would not, I mean, I was very uncomfortable even talking about Zoom because I have a son who works for Zoom. I'm like, hey, use other businesses, look at them all. And I'm not getting a financial benefit there, but it had an appearance. Oh, Karen's just getting her son's, you know, people talk. There's an appearance, and we need to avoid that with the people we serve. That's my thing.
I hear you on that. I just conversely though, if it were us and there was this grant available for $1 million for sewer improvements, well, the shoe might be on the other foot. I might reach out to the Chamber of Commerce and Alan Hancock to have them write a letter of support for me.
However, that hasn't happened, and we have applied for grants, and we don't need to involve these private entities to
We might
do
not
it.
have the money to do it ourselves, but we sure as shooting would apply for that grant.
Well, we would.
Right?
But I'm saying we wouldn't go to the chamber and ask them to help us get that grant because we have a very well-defined small role here. And I like sticking to our role. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to build networks with chambers of commerce. And that has a bad look to the people who voted me in. It may not make the people who support you or who you talk to uncomfortable, but I work with little old ladies and young families are the two groups I speak to the most. And they're not big on the chamber. They're not big on the chamber downtown. Our thrift store is complaining, chamber's pressuring us to join. We don't want to be a part of that. So, I mean, I've got a different point of view than if you live in West Santa Ynez. I do volunteer work here, and then I spend time with young families who are complaining about the traffic, the speeding. They don't like the way they came here to have a nice little quiet town. So I know that I could not in good conscience, you guys can vote for it, but the people that, my own opinion plus the people that I answer to, what's this with you working with the Chamber of Commerce to get grants for disadvantaged communities? They feel like Director Redfern expressed, like, what disadvantaged community? The only disadvantaged community I know that gets disadvantaged community funds is the richest enterprise in the valley. So it's just a red flag to some people, and you could call that paranoid or hypersensitive.
Well, if the money goes to Allen Hancock to expand the criteria that they're teaching, those same people that you represent, their children are going to be beneficiaries of that.
I didn't say that.
Pardon?
It'd be nice to know how much of the percentage is going down Hancock. That would be a real kicker for me.
Yeah, $1 million is going to go into our ag program, with a quarter of that being spent directly in the valley to help teach people how to irrigate more efficiently, or, you know, whatever that is. But it's not, it's a Chamber of Commerce saying we are getting a grant and we're getting support to help us get it, and it will benefit everyone, I promise you.
Yeah, it was nebulous. It was not specific. It didn't say we're going to open up a satellite campus in Gilbert, say, to teach kids, and we're going to take high school students there, or, you know, whatever. They could have listed it, but they didn't.
Yes, and it is not the college. It is a private organization that promotes
It's not
business.
up to us to guess what they're talking about. That's what they're asking us to do.
Excuse, what was that? I didn't understand.
They're asking us to guess how, it's not really clear. I mean, they mentioned Allen Hancock College, and everybody.
Okay, why don't we have staff, if we may draw up a letter and send it to the Chamber of Commerce, the one that sent it out to us? Just say, hey, we'd love to support you. We have some specific criteria. Could you explain this, this, and that, where the money is going specifically? Is it going to be designated for this, for that? What percentile is going to this, to that? We would just like to know and be better informed. Thank you. Boom.
I don't really like spending staff hours. I felt the same way about the Los Olivos thing, spending all those staff hours trying to get Los Olivos in the district. It's like, why are we spending the money of the people here with that are flushing their toilet to go out and build our empire?
Well, Karen, this is a lot of energy.
Yes.
If we take a few minutes, write a letter, we'll all get the letter, we'll all get the questions that we're questioning, or the answers to the questions. We look at it and we can either throw it in the trash, say, hey, this is good, let's support this, or let's not support this.
We have a clause not to extend half an hour.
Well, we've already, Jose has already written a letter, and we're paying an attorney for this discussion right now.
Anyway.
Yes.
Mr. Gambra, I hear your comment and your suggestion. Unfortunately, I don't think we have enough time to be able to receive a letter from the chamber explaining the details to our questions that we have, that we'd be able to find.
Okay, so that's fine. If time is of the essence for them, then, then they probably dropped the ball for not getting it to us faster.
Well, we really don't need a motion unless we intend to take an action. Yes,
So we would
Yeah.
need a motion.
only if we, does somebody want to?
Motion that we don't want to submit this letter, or we take motion that we will?
I'm going to ask Mr. Battles, do we need a motion to take no action? Oh, you're on mute. I didn't think
Okay, let's go back to the beginning.
Oh, could you unmute? No, he's on, I'm not on mute. Rick is on mute. He heard all.
Yeah, so if nobody makes a motion, then no action gets taken. You could have someone make a motion to approve the letter. You could take and then have a vote on that, and that would be the deciding action. You could have someone make a motion to approve it. And if there isn't support for that motion, then that would also have the same result.
Okay, is there anyone that would like to make a motion?
I would make the motion that we send the letter that Mr. Acosta had written.
Okay, we have a motion to send the letter that our general manager wrote. Do we have a second?
I'll make the second.
Director D'Ambra has seconded. Wendy?
We have a motion by Director Muller and a second by Director D'Ambra to send the letter that the general manager has prepared. We'll do a roll call vote.
Can we hear what the letter is before we vote on it?
Which letter, the request or his?
Read it.
He read it already.
Read it again. Okay. Dear Ms. Beard, the San Ynez Community Service District is pleased to see that northern Santa Barbara County and the San Ynez Valley neighboring communities have been designated by USDA and its multiple federal agency partners as, quote, the Allen Hancock College Center of Community Prosperity, unquote, one of only 3 currently designated areas in California. That the, quote, bottoms-up, unquote, approach of the centers of prosperity are an effective means of finding locally driven solutions to the challenges and needs of the community. Paving the way for the region to access more support from federal resources under the administration's Rural Prosperity Initiative will allow for better infrastructure when it comes to water, wastewater, broadband education, workforce development, and food insecurity for the agricultural sector development. The resources that can be provided with this assistance to the local disadvantaged agricultural sector would be beneficial in allowing them to seek assistance with infrastructure, asset identification and management, and resources for strategic planning and action. San Ynez Community Services District understands that the local needs assessment will become part of a broader needs assessment being coordinated by Econ Alliance as part of its role as facilitator of the Community Council of Faith and Opportunity. With Econ Alliance and Allen Hancock College, key community representatives working with USDA to foster additional support for the community prosperity. Lastly, the San Ynez Community Services District looks forward to understanding the identification of needs, resources, challenges, and opportunities the community has.
You wrote that up at the top of your head?
There was a template.
Yeah, they sent a template of what they recommended that we say, but we can change it and make it fit. Okay, so there is a motion and a second. So any further comments, or we can vote?
Roll call vote. Director,
Oh, sorry.
Director Muller,
Aye.
Director Neambra,
Aye.
Director Jones,
No.
Director Redfern.
So the motion didn't
Does anybody
pass.
have a coin?
So in this case, since it didn't pass, then we just move on, Rick?
Correct.
Okay, then we can bring Director Beard in. Thank you. That's 2 times now. We're keeping track of times we haven't voted together there.
Two out of
2 out of 100.
two. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's what, it's 99, 98?
Okay, we're not keeping score, but yeah. Okay,
We're
so
not keeping score, and you say out of 100. What do you mean?
okay. We had a tie vote, and so we're not going to recommend, and I would say a couple factors, probably the biggest one was the short timeline. Okay,
So continuing on with manager's report. The next
yes,
thing that I would request from the board is, I'd like to compile a letter of response to the city of Salt Lake on their letter that they sent over to the CSD back in August of 2019 for us to maintain their sewer facilities, the wastewater treatment plant. A letter has never been sent in response to this. What I would like to do is compile a letter, bring it back to the board for review and put the next agenda, and send that letter off to them. In that letter, I would like to state that at this time, the district is seeking its own projects and has a busy schedule and agenda on our plate. And we would send it back with a notification right now that we are not interested in this. If at a later date, the city of Salt Lake does want to request it again, that they can submit that request.
That isn't how I understood this whole thing. I thought we were full tilt ahead to go take that over. And now we're turning it upside down. Where did that come from? This is the first I've ever heard of that. Am I alone with this?
no, what happened is we had a change of management, and then, time happened. We didn't submit a timely response, and then people drifted off and got reprioritized things. But I'm with you in the sense that my question is, why are we writing the no now? I understand, I'll let you address that. And then the other part of that is it may be something that we want to do. And John, yes, exactly. And John Dornalis, I loved what he said about it. It was so simple. He said, why would we want to do that? So that's a good question, but that's something I would like to pursue. So I don't really understand why we need to say no right now, a year after, we got has it been about a year since we got the
It's
request?
been over a year.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think, yeah.
So
Okay.
if the board would like to readdress this and bring it back, and I can look up all the information that was compiled, and we can readdress this, topic, we can do that as well.
I think,
My concern was that, I don't know why we would want to take on the city of Salt Lake wastewater facilities at this time. So I just wanted to put a closure to it and give them an opportunity to re-review their proposal, see if they're still interested. If they are, they resubmit their proposal and, request, and then we can start fresh. But if not, if the board decides that we want to just see what we have currently and work forward from there, we can do that as well. I think it's a mess because I wasn't involved in that. The prior director was, the prior general manager was, he's no longer here, so we would have to find out all the information that he had compiled, which direction he was headed in, with direction from the board.
let me ask you why you were so negative on it when you just said you didn't have any information on it.
Because I don't see why we would want to take on a facility that we don't have any input history on, or, also with the Health First facility, we have to take on their staff, we don't have the staff to run the facility. So there's a lot of considerations that we would have to take on. As far as being negative, I'm just stating what I believe the CSD stands to be on, or being able to actually perform the task of running it.
I think we're getting into where we got last time. It needs to be on the agenda. I'm getting good, right? Yes, I like the idea of discussing this further, and I would probably like it in the November deal, because I don't need it, we don't need to have any confusing or mixed messages right now. It seems like not good timing. So to give a thoughtful review of this on the November agenda makes sense.
Actually-
I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
How about after January when the new council comes in? Because there's a lot of changes coming over there.
Well, we're going to talk before we talk to them, so we can start talking
Okay,
about it.
yeah.
And then we will be ready. But to get Jose up to speed, and for us to get up to speed on Jose's feelings about it, because it was not something that our temporary general manager even got into much, because we were recruiting Jose Acosta. But it seems like that would be the right timeline. I definitely want to hear what our new general manager thinks. And then also after you get all the information and see, why would we want to do that? That's the question we'll
Why
answer.
wouldn't we want to do that?
Well, exactly, but I understand both, but it would be a nice thing to talk about.
We would want to do that. Is it lower the cost for everybody?
It
Right,
just may do that.
but we need to talk about that in an agendized, a separate agendized discussion. And I would recommend that we start that probably at the November meeting would be good, even as late as December, but getting our ducks in a row going into the new year.
Thank you, appreciate that. That's what I was looking for. How you guys want to proceed.
Thank you. Okay, now next manager's report.
Probably the longest manager report. Next item, my manager report is, I've had communication with the city of Salt Lake, city administrator, and our public works director. And I know one of the requests was to coordinate a wastewater committee meeting soon, but I've been told that the city council has elected to disband all subcommittees on their end. So they are not participating in the subcommittees at this time. So there's no, they wouldn't participate in wastewater committee meeting at this time. But what I would like to do is, schedule staff at staff level, staff coordination meetings. That way I can maintain communication with the staff over there on progress of the project there. What our coordination is with them, collaboration. I feel that if there is a heavy topic that board discussion does want, the board wants to be involved in, then we can contact the city of Salt Lake, have them coordinate with their council members, we coordinate with our board members, set up a meeting. Or committees, they disband it all.
I try and watch their council meetings, and I watched on Monday, but I didn't watch gavel to gavel, but I caught most of it. So I haven't talked to anyone over there. I like that if our staff interacts on a level of working on the aeration, I think that that the oversight still needs to be there, but that's their problem over there. Our oversight still needs to be here, but I don't see a problem. I'm interested in what you guys think about our staff still working closely with their staff.
Just so I can elaborate a little bit more, those staff meetings that will report out to the board members, that's in those staff meetings. Take any input prior to the scheduled board meeting, scheduled staff meeting, I would come to the board and say, they have a scheduled staff meeting next month. Are there any issues with discussion that you guys want to put onto that agenda for that meeting? And again, the next following month, report out what we discussed.
Okay, so what would you be talking about the administrative staff with? This isn't to work with the people at their wastewater unit. You're talking about talking with their.
No, I'm talking about the wastewater.
Oh, okay,
The
yeah.
wastewater at the staff level.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense that,
I
you
would
know,
not set up meetings with staff level with the city administrator one-on-one or discussing their administrative section.
yeah, that makes sense to me. Because I feel like we do have a good relationship and I want to maintain it. I'd like to be a helpful neighbor.
So that's that next item on my manager's report. Next item on my manager's report is I did attend a CSDA webinar. It was Governance Foundation. It was a great seminar, a great webinar. It's a great webinar for board members to probably attend and listen to. And 2.5, actually 3 hours webinar. What are it pertains to? What are board members? What are boards and how do they get here? They elaborate on what a board consists of. How do they find boards? How do they come up with compatible boards for districts? For the boards working to achieve unity of purpose, they instead of I, making it a we, and how they collaborate in doing that. And then just carrying out the mission effectively of the CSD and the constituents. It was a great webinar. Just wanted to report out that we probably had a good webinar. Many of the board members were included.
I would be interested and I'll work with Wendy if I need help setting it up. I can probably go to their website, but just the specific one. So we all have shared knowledge when we're talking about certain things. And I just want to commend you. I'm not saying don't go to Sacramento, but it's really nice when we can get the education here without paying for motels and travel. That's nice. There's some things that we need to go to, but this is something that came up in our discussions with recruitment. We're a small agency, and that just makes sense to get our education that way. Right now, we don't have much choice, but that's one of the upsides of this downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very good. I'm glad you did that.
Also, I took a tour of the city of Salt Lake wastewater treatment plant. Did that a couple of weeks ago. Last time I was out there was in 1999. I will say this, that nothing's changed out there. It's exactly the same as it did in 1999.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I do want to start reporting out some of the tasks and projects that the crew has taken on. That way the board is familiar with what they do out in the field and the public can hear. So I just picked out a few things that happened throughout the month of August. District staff was at the wastewater treatment plant preparing the facility for, they did a re-slurry, paint for the asphalt out there. And so district staff was out there assisting at the wastewater plant, moving stuff around and ensuring that it was ready for slurry fill.
At Solvang or
Right here at Chumash.
Chumash?
Oh, I thought we were talking about Solvang.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarification. I was like, God, we are getting along. We're moving your stuff for them.
The city of Salt Lake and that crew did actually get along, and there's an access road that we have to get down that had a street knocked down, so the city of Salt Lake had a bigger, larger equipment, so crew and city of Salt Lake crew coordinated on moving these branches, access way more accessible for trucks.
That's great. We pay for 20% of that truck, so that's great.
On Saturday, August 15th, there was a power outage. That's when we had called, we had a huge power outage. The crew responded at the wastewater treatment plant. They lost all electrical capabilities there, but everything takes care of. Pump station, 9:45 to 2:46, pump station did blow a hose, heater hose. So that had worked and get that hose repaired. It was a coolant hose that busted, started leaking out, going on.
On the generator.
Yeah. So that came back up, they got that back up and running within 35 minutes. The district staff also hydro flushed over 8,000 feet of collection system line on the upper west side. The water was used to flush between manholes and was monitored as far as west side and Cedar Street. They are back out there doing flushing and ensuring that the collection system is keeping. We are using the jetter. We're supposed to be starting more counts daily as well.
Excellent.
That's a new generator at the station there. That's the 246 station, it's less than 10 years old, something. And it blew a hose, right? Why aren't we replacing all hoses?
Why don't you replace all hoses?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
And then, now that we know that they last 10 years or whatever, replacing their half-life, because we need that to work.
Correct. And so what we'll do is we're also looking into obtaining a maintenance system. That way we can start having stuff on a regular basis and put these into records that would remind us to do. And we have to, like you say, do an assessment of how long they're lasting and then do not a preventative or corrective maintenance, be able to do a predictive.
Right. Yeah. It's a place to maintain generators. We did have something going where it was.
So we would have to set up a predictive maintenance, so we can get a computerized maintenance management system that way. Not that that's what you need, you should be able to do this paper and pen as well. That's something that we are.
Well, it is, we still water and change the antifreeze every year. Just because it turns to acid, you know, we have the radiator.
You're such an asset. That's great.
Frank, I would have thought of that in about 5 years. It was a great thought, would you not, concur there, General Manager? Brilliant.
That is included.
Okay, so we shall move to legal counsel's report. Rick?
Okay, a couple things to report on. One is a recent case dealing with, or not a case, rather, a recent change in the law dealing with the California Environmental Quality Act. When the district undertakes a project, it files, if the project is exempt from review under SYCSD, it files a notice of exemption with the county. If the project requires more extensive review, like a negative declaration or a environmental impact report, then it'll file that. It'll send that up to whatever agency might have jurisdiction over the project, and it gets filed through an office in Sacramento called the Office of Planning and Research. The requirements recently became a little bit more complicated for filing a simple notice of exemption with the county. Now there's a form you have to fill out to submit it and a $50 fee that you have to pay. And the requirements just changed again so that you no longer can file documents with the Office of Planning and Research, including notices of exemption where you've got another agency that needs to review it, a state agency that's reviewing it. You can no longer send them by mail, deliver them in person, or even send them by email. Instead, you have to register with the SYCSD net database, and then all the documents have to be submitted through this new database. So the agency has to register with OPR through this database, and then all the filings go there. It'll affect us only if we've got a notice of exemption where arguably a state agency is involved, like maybe the regional board has some permitting authority. And if we undertake a bigger project, it's the kind of thing where we'd have a consultant prepare an environmental impact report or negative declaration anyway, and they would be familiar with this new requirement and they would handle the filing for us. So not something that's gonna have a big effect, but just a report on a change in the law in that regard.
A quick question, Rick. That would not apply to this little exemption that we're asking for our water well.
The The test wells that we're talking
Yes,
about,
yes.
I think the action was not to do CEQA review there, or there wasn't any action to do the CEQA review on that, unless I
Oh,
missed
I
that.
thought it was exempt.
Well, if it's exempt, we still have to file a notice of exemption, and we go through a process of completing what's called a preliminary environmental review form. We can do that after the fact. And maybe that's something Jose and I can have a follow-up discussion on. Again, since this is going through Canon, it's not clear that it's really even our project, but that's something that would take a little bit of analysis. So,
Okay, but it's nothing that we have to worry about right now, but it's something that potentially we will be dealing with if we do a
Yeah.
big project.
yeah, and this would be, and these test wells are, I think, very clearly just local in nature, so there wouldn't be any kind of review by state agencies of something like this. And that would be that would trigger the requirement for filing with Office of Planning and Research, and would trigger the requirement for registering and filing through this SEQA in the future.
Okay, but thank you.
Uh-huh.
And what is your next thing?
I was just going to mention that I'm a member of the Attorneys Committee through the California Association of Sanitation Agencies, and San Ynez is also a member of that organization, it's my understanding, or at least they were at one point. And so the Attorneys Committee meets 3 times a year, used to be 4 times a year, usually as part of the conferences that CASA holds. And CASA isn't holding the conferences these days, and the attorneys are not meeting in person these days, but we are having a Zoom meeting this Friday. So normally we have 30 or 40 attorneys in attendance, and we talk about issues that wastewater agencies face, the laws, the regulations, even some operational issues to the extent that they raise legal concerns. So they're often very valuable, and just thought I'd mention that I'm going to be attending that by Zoom on Friday, and I'll probably have some things to report at the next meeting regarding that.
Very good. That sounds like you will almost certainly have some new information after that.
Hope so. I usually do.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, thank you, Rick. And Wendy, the Secretary Treasurer's report.
Oh, I found it, on Friday.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any other, that's it? And we did not have any committee meetings, I do not believe. Okay, then we shall go to director's comments. Are there any comments from director? Oh, I have a comment. I forgot, I wanted to bring this up. I was signing checks, and I signed the checks for you guys on your employment committee, and I felt a little bit of a sting, and I felt like I should have been paid for the work that I did with Bob. But I've talked to Wendy, and she said that if I'm able to show our meeting times and hours, then I can still apply for it. But I wanted to be transparent here and let the board know that I would like to apply to be reimbursed, or I don't know if a stipend, I don't know what the term is because I never received orientation on this. But Wendy is helping me when we do committee meetings, say with the wastewater committee. Wendy has always just handled that for me. And I have not had luck submitting on my own, but I think that I will this time. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I know that Bob and I met at least a few times through that on that committee. And I'm going to, if there is no reason that I not do that. And Rick, how about you?
If that's a compensable activity, the fact that you didn't submit a request for compensation right at the time, I don't think would foreclose it. After some period of time, like you wouldn't want to go back years, there might be a concern. But if it's, how long ago were the meetings?
Within the last year, it was the review, the personnel, I don't even know what you call it, evaluation, the GM evaluation meetings. And I came up with the form. Bob and I met. We met with the general manager at the time. And I think I can use my phone because Bob and I usually call or message when we're getting ready to meet. I threw away my paper calendar and I don't use an electronic one, and we don't email each other. But I think through my phone records, I can check with Bob, but it is something that we put time into. And I probably wouldn't even noticed or thought of it, but I thought, I don't like being the only one not getting paid for that.
What your policy says is that directors shall be compensated at the rate of $50 for attendance at standing committee meetings and ad hoc committee meetings, together with any expenses incident thereto, up to $600 per month.
This was well, this is where it gets a little tricky because that was a standing committee, but there's been some discussion about that. But it wouldn't have happened if that committee wasn't okay, because we reported back to the board, we've met, we're not ready to evaluate yet, we're working, you know, I have a paper trail, even if there isn't a clear agreement on it being a standing or an ad hoc.
Well, the board did for me.
Oh, that's what we did, because I knew it was a standing committee, but once again, I acquiesced to be collegial. But yes, we went ahead and formed a standing committee to do that. You're correct. Ad hoc, yes, not standing. Okay, so any questions, comments? How about anybody else? Got anything? Okay, well, then we are at the end of the line here, and I would like a motion. If there's a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
It's yay. Okay, Director Mueller, who I used to call Director Mueller,
Yeah. Well,
and you never
either one
corrected me.
works.
I
No,
know,
no,
but
that's closer to the German pronunciation.
Well,
Yeah.
We have to do a roll call. before we
oh,
We have a motion by Director Niembra and a second by Director Muller to adjourn the meeting at 7:44. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Muller.
Aye.
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 that
Well,
is
you could have
it. Thank
stopped
you.
it with the third eye, Director Beard, right? Then it would-
No, because they all have to be recorded.
Good night, Rick. Bye, Jake. Once again, thank you for all your help, Jay.
Thanks for having me. Good night, all.
Bye-bye.